Just going to cover a bit of background, bit of history first. Did you fall in love with the guitar at a young age?
I did. I started playing guitar when I was 12 years old, and I'd always enjoyed just music from even earlier than that. I mean, I was as a small child, I can remember cousins and so forth playing Bo Diddley records and stuff like that, and saying, "Wow, what is that?" But in reference to guitar, it was 12 years old, and I started playing and really became a little rock and roller quite early on.
Was there a defining moment when blues became a prime focus for you?
Well, actually, it was a process. When I was a kid of that age, I started with a teacher in my hometown of Vallejo, California, and he was an instrumental person in pointing me in the direction of blues direction. His name is Joe Wagner, and I still see him every once in a while. He actually played in an R&B band with Sylvester Stewart, none other than Sly Stone.
Oh yeah.
Before he was Sly Stone, and so Joe was he turned me on through my lessons and through my initial lessons and so forth, just learning the rudiments. I quickly found out who Freddie King was and Johnny Guitar Watson, and besides Chuck Berry and all those people. So I have Joe to thank for putting me in that kind of direction. So as far as blues per se, I was in a rock and roll band when I was 13, so we're talking 1963 here. So it was I was real steeped in, at a really early age, playing the classics of the day. I was actually, in my particular case, which is a very interesting sidelight to my story, is that I was 13, but I was playing in a high school band, so all the guys were like 16, 17, which is quite an age difference at that point.
Oh, yeah.
I learned, I was like a little sponge, and I was, we were playing Harlem Nocturne, and besides Louie and all the Chuck Berry and stuff like that, so I really didn't get into, when the British invasion came, a couple of years later, the next year, I think, the Stones and so forth, that's when, I really got into more of a blues thing. I had been playing Jimmy Reed, and I certainly knew who some of the blues guys were, and playing with that early band, but not Muddy Waters, or Howlin' Wolf. I really was turned on, like so many guitar players of the day, through the records that were covered by the British bands, in large part. It's kind of a 50-50 thing for me, so there you go.
Did you eventually become a keen student of the blues? Did you actively go out and seek as much historical material as you could?
Oh, a couple of different ways. It's in the libraries back in the 60s. I don't think they do now, but they used to have these generic records called that were made by the Library of Congress, and you could go check them out at the local library, and it had all the great Alan Lomax stuff that was done in the 40s, all the field recordings, and that stuff just blew my mind. Listening to that and seeing, just seeing how the roots and how the music influenced, and I really got into that early on. I said, wow, this guy listened to this guy, and that guy listened to that other guy, and all of that, and then they influenced all these groups in Britain that, covered these songs, and, who's McKinley Morganfield, who is that? And all that, we all have those great stories, and really when you're young like that, I mean, you're just, wide-eyed and bushy-tailed, as we say, and it was all very exciting. And certainly that was one aspect. The other aspect, of course, was that the Fillmore Auditorium was just coming on strong when I was in high school. So I actually used to, before I was driving, I used to take the Greyhound bus into the city of San Francisco, and I used to go see, pretty much all the greats. I mean, I'm happy to say, in 64, 65, 66, and thereafter, I saw, Wolf, I saw, Jimmy Reed, Johnny Hooker do a show together, Freddie King, not to mention BB, of course, and all those guys. So it was really very exciting, and certainly they were the whole blues revival thing, as you certainly are aware of, and many of your listeners, was just coming on strong in that point of time. So you had the folk revival. So you had people like Mance Lipscomb and Bucka White and all these, people playing at the Berkeley Blues festivals, and all these great things were around, and it was all very exciting for a young guitar player.
Oh, for sure. Was there anyone or anything in particular that turned you on to playing slide guitar?
Oh, certainly Robert Johnson. I have an older brother who, very fortuitously for me, brought home the king of the Delta blues singers. During this period, I was probably about 14 or 15, and I heard Robert Johnson, and that was it. Just struck a chord. For whatever reasons, it just very moved to check out what slide guitar was, and it was, the slide guitar, certainly talking about early roots, was always a parallel thing for me. I was always exploring it while playing in bands and, Playing rock and roll and blues and that kind of thing, but not really playing performance-wise just yet at that point in time. And, of course, in the course of my career, obviously that's a long time ago, the slide guitar soon became the focus for me, and now, obviously, it's through all these years of playing and recording, it's my choice of self-expression, if you will. So, but Robert Johnson certainly was the kingpin for me as far as pointing me in that direction. He's still the guy. He is the guy.
He is the guy. Now, in terms of local performers there in San Francisco in the 60s, how strong was the blues scene? Was it hard to get noticed above all the psychedelic rock that was happening there in the late 60s? Well,
that was the certainly the focus was on the psychedelic bands, but there was a significant blues scene as part of it, because it was always part of what was booked around that time. Certainly Bill Graham and the Avalon Ballroom, people like that, they always had the Butterfield Band. You had lots of bands from overseas coming over too. So I think even though it was secondary to the whole San Francisco sound kind of thing, it was a viable part of what was going on. Most definitely.
Now, you recorded
Elvin Bishop. Elvin Bishop was around. Steve Miller, he moved out here from Texas at that time. So there were a lot of people. This was the Mecca, but and the blues was certainly a basic part of it, for sure.
You recorded in the 70s with a guy named David Bergen. What can you tell us about him?
Well, I met up with David in the early 70s, and we both were into doing more of a basic blues duet, kind of like, it wasn't really modeled after Sonny Terry and Brownie McGhee, but we liked, he was a very, very good harmonica player, and I'd gotten just more and more into the roots aspect, and certainly the Mississippi Delta blues by this point, and we did it simply as a duet, and we became quite well known in the local area, really. Opened up a lot of shows for a lot of blues people came to town at the various venues. We would open up for Taj Mahal, Bobby Blue Bland, all those kind of guys, and we would, not to mention, Jerry Garcia Band, people like that. We would just open up for a whole slew of people as a duet, and we finally, through our efforts of just playing around together, didn't really tour that much. Didn't really go. It was we recorded in '76, but we toured very sporadically, not really well known outside of the West Coast, I wouldn't say. Mm-hmm. Great duet though. I really. I don't know if you have that record. Do you have the record?
No, I don't actually. No,
that's hard to find, that record.
I imagine it would be.
It's called "A Foot in the Door," and very interesting record. Amos Garrett sits in on guitar, and actually do a duet vocally with Maria Muldaur, and we had a fun time on that record. But it really was focused on the duet of harmonic and slide guitar.
I believe some of your work found its way to the soundtrack of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Well, that was the first major kind of session that I really did with David, and we were part of a group of people from the Bay Area that were hired to do the soundtrack. Jack Nietzsche was the writer and the director of the music for that, and what a thrill! I'd never been part of anything like that before, and really a wonderful learning experience, and just my pleasure to be part of it. So that was about 73, 74 is my recollection, and it was a very exciting time. Very exciting time.
The later albums you recorded with Norton Buffalo, did they evolve out of a desire to work in a duo-type situation again?
They did, actually, as an adjunct to the band. I mean, I've had a band, the Delta Rhythm Kings, since about 81, 82, and I met up with Norton in the mid-'80s, and I actually had met him in this period with David Bergen that we just referred to here, and he had his band called the Stampede at that point. He did a couple of records for Capitol, and so I knew Norton over the years, and just never really performed together per se, unless we were doing gigs together with our bands. So in the '80s, we kind of synced up in some kind of I think it was even a local award show or something. I said, "Hey, what you doing?" And he said, "Hey, what you doing?" And one thing led to another, and we both said, "Well, geez, it'd be great to do something as a duet," because Bergen was no longer in the music business. He wasn't performing at all, and Norton was touring with Steve Miller, as he has been for a number of years, and still does, actually. And we just decided to make a couple of records, and it just clicked. Norton and I just clicked in a way that is very, very, very special for us musically, and just we're great friends, and it's really shows on those records. I'm very, very happy with how those records came out.
You seem to be an artist that thrives on being involved in a musical partnership of sorts. Is that a more comfortable situation for you than working solo?
No, I wouldn't say that. Because I've had my band, for however many records I've done. I don't know. I forget how many records I have out now. About 9. And that's me just with my guys. Over the years for recording different projects for different labels, and that's certainly I use in that situation. I normally bring in the music and writing. I have done some co-writing with people, but it hasn't always been a partnership like with Buffalo or like with David Bergen, that kind of thing. Although I think I would put it more like I enjoy a variety of things.
Yeah. Some
of which are partnerships. I like the fact that you can not be pegged in a certain way. Obviously, I play slide guitar, and I'm known in the blues realm, and that's fine with me, although my musical interests take me in a lot of different directions. And some of those directions, when you partner with somebody, it just kind of can take it into new modes and new places that you never would have thought possible, and I think I enjoy that in addition to doing my own thing with the band, So. Mm-hmm. I'm just your basic eclectic kind of guy.
Now, recently you've also done some work with Shannon Morrison. How did that partnership come to be?
Shannon and I had her sing on an album of mine, invited her to sing on Pleasure and Pain. And I was struck by the quality of her voice. She's got just a wonderful voice, and the way our voices went together was, you just have to hear. I mean, it was just a great, just the way they went together. Just it struck me that there was something special there. We both actually were being booked by the same agent at the time, and that's how I specifically met her. And we actually both had done a benefit for Brownie McGee's Blues Foundation here in the Bay Area, so I'd actually met her at that also, but didn't really know her per se. And then I brought her into the studio and said, "Would you like to sing on these songs?" And it was so good. I said, something here, Shanna. Let's see if we can put some songs together and maybe perform. And we ended up putting together a trio just with an upright bass player, whose name is Scoot McGuire, and that's who we brought down to Australia when we were there for the East Coast Festival with the band. And we ended up recording a record. I said, this is just really too good. We must get this on a recording. And made a really, really what I consider a very fine recording, and I'm very proud of that fact also. So, and again, it illustrates the other directions. I just love going in different directions and pursuing something that feels good at the time, and letting it fly, really.
Now, you played a vital role in reigniting the career of John Lee Hooker. How was the studio relationship between the two of you?
Well, John, you know, we could talk for hours about John. Obviously, my relationship with John was extremely close, and that came about from my relationship in his band when I played with him in the early '80s. We just became great friends, and I started out as just a sideman in his band, but really just became friends of John and helped him with some business things on the road and tour managing, that kind of thing. And we just spent a lot of time together, and he knew I loved the music and had a lot of knowledge, I suppose, about where the music had come from. He always used to kid me about, where'd you learn that Delta stuff? You know, I mean, that's, you know, he loved that stuff, and that led to my being asked to produce his recordings, because I'd left the band. I left the band in '86 to do my own touring with the Delta Rhythm Kings, and I got a call from John and his manager, Mike Kappas, to produce The Healer, what became The Healer anyway, and that was because of that relationship. I'd always kept a close contact with John, and used to sit in with his band, and in the studio, I mean, it was just like a glove. I mean, we really got along at all times great. I mean, I could say that there was when you're working with someone like John, who simply had, I mean, to his credit, he was open for all these ideas and you know, things that we were trying, and he trusted me. I mean, I had an inherent trust, and I suppose there was a mutual respect involved, to where that comes into play when you're talking about a relationship with someone in the studio, because, you know, they're putting their soul on the line, and I'm grateful to John for having that trust in me. What can I say? I think the tracks prove it. You know, we got some great recordings, and John was always up for trying new stuff. One of my proudest things was that I was, anecdotally, I was after John early on to play a National Steel, some songs on my National Steel. I have an old 1931 National, and he said, "No, Roy," he says, "I don't want to do that. It's too hard to play," or, you know, and he'd never been recorded on a National Steel or a 12-string. And I said, "You know, John, I'd like to get you in these different kind of situations, to where it would be a little easier to play." And 45 minutes later, I had like 6 songs in the can. He wouldn't put it down. So it's it's that kind of situation. You know, when I finally recall those kinds of instances with John, I mean, we really had a great working relationship, and had fun in the studio. You know, I mean, we had a lot of people sit in, as you know, off those records.
Yeah.
Van Morrison, Keith Richards, Cray, Albert Collins, great session with Charles Brown, not to mention Bonnie Raitt. I mean, it was so many people, and John's energy was boundless. I mean, he really always had boundless energy, and I was just happy to just make whatever contribution there was there. I always refer to my role as simply trying to set up a comfort zone for John and whomever was coming in. I think that's very important, because we're, you know, in those situations, you're not trying to make like a hit record per se, in you know, trying to analyze what's going to be a hit or this or that. You're just trying to capture the moment the best you can, and that's what the blues and this kind of music is all about. If you can capture a moment, and that moment becomes a very special thing in the process of doing it, you have accomplished something that is the best you can do. And that's my feeling, and I think we did that with John. So,
recent production of yours was the Ramblin' Jack Elliott album, Friends of Mine. That must have been an extremely enjoyable project for you.
Really was. I really enjoy the production as well as the performing, as you could tell. I mean, I really am happy to have had the opportunities to produce someone like John Lee Hooker and Ramblin' Jack. Jack is in another realm, a very special man, as you know. That record was, actually a very similar kind of situation. We went for people that to be special guests with Jack that meant something to him, that friends, just like with John. I mean, people that he knew was comfortable with, not just trying to do something just to have it be a hit record kind of thing. I mean, pick a song with people that means something, and hopefully take the music to higher ground. And in Jack's case, again, it just with the combination of forces and his attitude and being up for new things and trying things in a different way, and I think it really gels. I mean, really soon in those situations if something's going to gel or it isn't. And we don't beat it up. I don't believe in beating it up. By that I mean, you don't want to try too hard. You just got to let it happen. Especially with guys like Ram and Jack Elliott, who's been around a long time, as well as John Lee Hooker. I mean, you just want to set up a situation with whomever they're performing with and recording with to hopefully see something special happen. And again, for friends of mine, some really special moments there, really special moments. The song with Rosalie Sorrells is a wonderful song, and certainly the track that Jack did with Emmylou Harris and Nancy Griffith, stunning track.
By being a musician yourself, it would be a great advantage in a production situation of being able to relate to the artist in the studio as a fellow musician.
I suppose it certainly helps. I suppose you mean being a musician.
Yeah.
In a production. Yeah. Well, you're right in the thick of it. As far as like. In the case of an artist, you've gone over the song and the direction that you think it's going to go, and you aren't hard and fast about it. I mean, you don't go in as a little dictator or something like that. I mean, you just really organize it and say, well, we're prepared, and we're gonna. You're always able to shift the direction because you never know how the flow is going to go. But as far as being a musician and assisting in the arranging of a song or changing the part here or there, adding this instrument to make it a little bit different if you're covering something that was, a cover of an original song from way back when. How to organize that, and I certainly like that role. It's very creatively, exciting to do that because a lot of times I think that an artist, they just. They have an idea and they just play like they play, and that's all. That's cool. They can just interact with people, and it's right on the moment, and that's what you want. You want it right there. You don't want it to be too pre-thought out because it can sound a little stilted if you do that. I find certainly for my music also. I mean, I organize it, but you always don't want it to be. I'm not one to be way rehearsed. You're rehearsed enough to where you know the music, but you want it to be fresh, and that's always a fine line, I think, for everyone. I mean, and certainly with these sessions that we're talking about, that freshness is leaving enough room to where the artist feels comfortable that they can take it somewhere else. Not, oh, geez, I'm not playing it like we talked about it before. You know what I mean? You don't want them to say that because that way it's funny how that works. I have this discussion a lot because that's the stuff that when the artist really feels comfortable, it's like talking in conversation. I mean, you can see if I was trying to think of everything I wanted to tell you now, and I was trying to remember while I was talking to you, you would hear that in my voice. You would hear a stiltedness, or like I'm trying to remember. There's too much thought in there instead of just the flow of letting it go, and the music comes out. That's what I aspire to always in those sessions. You want to get past all the mechanics of doing it, and then the magic happens. We're always going for the magic. You don't always get it, but you're going for it.
Yeah. I think sometimes in the studio, working with a traditional music source such as the blues and folk, that there could be a danger that modern recording technology and instrumentation can detract a little bit from the feel?
How I would answer that is, I think that the technology, I'm not anti-technology, but I think that the technology should support the music in capturing it, not changing it.
Mm-hmm.
We have the ability now, technology-wise, to change the music as it is recorded. And it depends on what you're going for, I suppose. That's okay if you want to have the music be in the producer's hands to like do something with it. In other words, change it around, or you can edit this and edit that. But it's always better. And the recordings that my answer to this is the recordings that I like best over any time period you want to talk about are always the recordings that sound like they were just done straight through by the artist, and everyone is on the same page, and it's not manufactured by the technology at all, because it obviously wasn't there 30 years ago. But now through Pro Tools and all that stuff, it's fine. You can assist the music in that, but I don't think in this kind of music that you should use that to help define what the performance is. You follow me?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That's my feeling. It should support the music. There's certainly, I'm not anti-technology. I mean, they're getting better and better at this stuff. I still happen to like analog recording for roots music for a number of reasons I won't go into now. But I certainly use Pro Tools, and I think if you record it and have good gear going into the digital realm, then it's fine. But don't record technology-wise in the digital realm and then try to mess with it, with some kind of gear kind of thing. That's why I have a problem with that. You follow me?
Yeah, I sure do.
I don't want to get too technical here, but I'd rather go in with what the real thing is, what you're listening to, as opposed to like saying, I'm going to fix it later.
Yeah.
I'm going to play with it later. That's the problem I have. Now, again, though, I'm not a pop producer. When you're making pop records and those kinds of things, that's a different game. So then you are creating a sound that's for a different kind of listening ears in radio and that kind of thing. And that's certainly, I have no problem with that. That's a different ball game, though, than we're talking about here.
Talking about your songwriting, when you're writing a song, are you already thinking about how the finished product will sound in the studio, or does that just evolve naturally in the recording process?
I have an idea because I generally will make a demo through my recording here in my little studio here in my house, and I will put the parts down, and I will have a semblance of what the parts should be by all the players that I have come in, my own parts as well as drums and so forth. I'm not real, how should I say, dictatorial about it. I mean, I don't, you want players to come in and bring something to the party, but nevertheless, I do know the parameters of what I'm going for before I go into the studio. Yes. As to what the final thing turns out, no, you never know, because you never know what's going to happen in the studio. And I like to. I think your music, you should always play. How should I say it? If you've hired the right musicians, and you go in the studio with what I think is going to be good, it should always. If I've hired the right guys, it should always be better than I thought it would.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, I haven't hired the right guys. Follow me?
Yep.
I don't like having to. I can give somebody guidance as to what I think they should play, but I don't want to define exactly what somebody plays, because that's not leaving open possibilities that could be there. If he's the right player, then he'll have, wow, let's try this or something. Wow, that's cool, and that goes with it. I like the process of that and the interaction between the musicians. I mean, I could do it the other way. I mean, if I had to, obviously, you play this and you play that, and this is what I want you to play, and I suppose that's okay. A lot of people do that, but I from a playing standpoint, I like it better the other way, because that's more exciting. Obviously, you could fail that way too, but you got to be able to do that. People ask me a lot about from the production thing. They say, well, what how do you feel about when you're producing or when you're playing? They even asked, when you're playing, I mean, what are you thinking about? I said, well, in playing, I'm not thinking at all, because if I had to think about it when I'm playing, I'm not playing it right. And that's they kind of look confused, but then some of them get it. But in the studio, though, you certainly have to be more organized. But I like the fact that you can bring someone in and something special will hopefully happen from their chops as well as yours.
Now, just before we finish up, Roy, tell us about the new album I believe is coming out in the new year.
I'm very excited about this record. This is an all-instrumental recording. I've been thinking about doing a recording like this for a number of years, and actually some people had asked me about this. I found it very liberating not to be writing lyrics, and I wrote these songs, all of which are instrumental songs, and the album is called Slideways. Should be out, I think, in March, I believe, on a label called Evidence Records. There are some special guests on here. Zigaboo Modaliste of the Meters plays some drums. My drummer, Jimmy Sanchez. Scott Matthews, another drummer. I use different drummers for different tracks. Norton Buffalo plays some great harmonica tracks on here. Another drummer who... This is amazing, but he's still alive and kicking. Francis Clay, the original drummer for Muddy Waters, I believe.
Wow.
He's on 2 tracks. We got Francis on the snare. He doesn't really play a trap kit too much anymore. He's 78, 79 years old. We got him to do that nice shuffle on a snare.
Oh yeah.
Boy, oh boy. And my drummer was on the trap kit, and let me tell you, that's some swinging stuff. Had a great time with Francis, but it's really a rockin' CD from start to finish, and it'll be very interesting to see what people think of this. It's really, I'm really happy and very excited about people listening to it, because it's for all those guitar players out there, I suppose. This is definitely a guitar-oriented record, if you will, for sure. Like I said, it should be out in March, and it's called Slideways.
Sounds fantastic. And again, just another example of you trying something different all the time.
Yeah, I think so. It's it's the only way we can do it, man. It's you always got to take it to the edge, I mean, I think for me, music is about trying new things and not resting on your laurels. That's what keeps you fresh as a player, as well as just hopefully taking the music to some higher ground. And I think haven't had the pleasure of hanging out with guys like John Lee Hooker and see that how at any given moment. He was so in touch with what music was about for him, because it was life. I mean, it was his life, and I think for me, it's part of that is just trying new things and just being able to interact with the players wherever you go. I've certainly am blessed to go all over the world. Obviously, we had a great time down in Australia, by the way, this last spring at the East Coast Festival. Not only with the band, but with Shanna Morrison, and so. I look forward to come back down there. I don't get down to Australia too much, but always a great time coming down there. So. Yeah,
well, we weren't fortunate enough to get you down to Melbourne last time you were here, so hopefully we can get you down south while you're here next time.
Hopefully next time. I think I will be. I haven't been doing as much touring these past years because of the production things happening, but I think this coming year with a new record, you may see me down your way and touring a little bit more worldwide. So we'll see what happens.
That'd be fantastic. Thanks again for your time, Roy. It's been a pleasure speaking to you.
Okay.
And we're waiting for the new CD in the new year. That'd be fantastic.
We'll make sure you get a copy soon.
Terrific. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Okay, take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.